In the bustling city of Laros lived a wealthy businessman named Debo, whose fortune exceeded any practical need. He controlled 3 properties, 2 thriving firms, and a sprawling mansion filled with unused chambers. Outwardly, his life appeared flawless. Yet Debo harbored a private truth that others avoided mentioning. He had wed twice, and each union had crumbled, leaving him isolated in the vast, echoing residence. Rumors circulated about his unyielding nature, too stern, too distant, too challenging to cherish. Debo overheard the gossip, but chose silence over rebuttal. His initial spouse departed after 2 years, claiming he ignored her entirely, rendering her unseen within those walls. One day, as he toiled at the office, she gathered her belongings. Upon his return, her wardrobe section stood bare. He lingered before it, expressionless, before shutting it firmly and resuming his routine. The second union endured just 8 months. That partner complained of his perpetual detachment, feeling isolated amid the home's abundance. She vanished as well. Following this second failure, Debo dismissed his entire domestic crew. He craved solitude, a return without prying eyes. His longtime housekeeper, who'd served 6 years, pleaded to remain. He refused, offering her a generous severance instead. His chauffeur inquired about any misstep. Debo assured him otherwise and set his final shift for Friday. Gradually, the staff departed, plunging the mansion into profound stillness. Evenings found Debo warming his meals solo, dining wordlessly at the expansive table, convinced this isolation suited him. 3 weeks post-dismissals, however, Debo recognized his error. Neglect had overtaken the place. Grime coated the furniture. The kitchen resembled a cluttered depot. Unwashed plates accumulated, and his attire hung wrinkled. He summoned his capable aide, Bolu, instructing him to hire a single maid, discreet, minimally verbal, focused on tidying, preparing straightforward meals, and respecting his privacy. Bolu promised a candidate within the week. Debo urged haste. In merely 2 days, Bolu returned with a prospect from a nonprofit aiding disabled individuals in employment. The applicant was a 26-year-old woman called Sad, profoundly deaf and reliant on text messages and basic signs for interaction. Former bosses praised her diligence, reliability, and spotless performance. Debo studied her dossier intently before approving. "All right, have her start a trial tomorrow." When Bolu questioned the hearing impairment, Debo replied curtly, "Not at all. In fact, it could prove advantageous." Maid appeared promptly at 7 o'clock the following morning, dressed in a simple blue frock with a modest satchel. She differed from Debo's assumptions, petite yet poised, her gaze composed and unwavering as she surveyed the interior impassively. Bolu handed her stationery. From the corridor, Debo uttered a greeting, aware it fell on deaf ears. She observed his mouth and scribbled a response. "Good morning, sir. Thank you for this chance. I won't let you down." He scanned the words, gave a brief nod, and directed Bolu to commence her duties. That inaugural afternoon, Debo entered a transformed space. Polished surfaces gleamed. Dust vanished from ledges. The cooking area was neatly arranged, and his garments awaited, pressed and aligned. A lidded dish of rice and stew sat on the table, accompanied by a message. "Still warm. Please eat before it cools." Pausing in the kitchen entryway, Debo absorbed the restored harmony absent for weeks. He dined, savoring the uncomplicated, yet flavorful fare, then retired, without reciprocating in writing. Daily, Maid arrived at 7 and departed at 6. gliding silently about her tasks. She avoided clamor and intrusions, especially during his office hours. To convey essentials, she'd tap lightly on his door and present her tablet. During her initial such approach, Debo was mid-conversation on the line. Her message read, "Kitchen gas nearly depleted. I'll replenish it tomorrow." He acknowledged with a gesture toward the cash drawer for expenses. She inclined her head graciously and withdrew. As she retreated down the passage, Debo pondered her deliberate gait. Ever cautious, ever vigilant. Over the ensuing 2 weeks, subtleties about Said caught his attention. She routinely peered behind entrances prior to stepping inside, and when jotting communications, she positioned herself backs to wall. She would sometimes startle at abrupt motions, even if it was merely a drape shifting in the wind. One night, Debo returned home ahead of schedule. Entering the living room, he spotted Sad frozen in the center of the space. Her eyelids were shut, arms hanging relaxed by her sides, body gently rocking as if attuned to an invisible rhythm, though no melody played and silence filled the air. From the threshold, Debo observed her motionless for nearly 2 minutes. Her eyes remained closed, the subtle sway continuing in serene rhythm. Her features softened into something unguarded, tender, reminiscent of innocence, far removed from the vigilant neutrality she maintained on the job. A peculiar sensation stirred in Debo's chest as he watched. Unfamiliar and unnamed, it unsettled him. He retreated soundlessly, heading to his office without alerting her to his arrival. There, he lingered at his desk, laptop untouched, replaying the vulnerable expression she'd worn in solitude. It lingered in his thoughts through the night. Come morning, Debo placed a message on the kitchen surface. "What were you up to in the living room yesterday evening?" He departed for the office prior to her shift, and upon his return that night a reply awaited beside his prepared meal. It read, "I was sensing the floor's tremors." During peak traffic hours outside, that area pulses noticeably. Barefoot, I detect it clearly. Closing my eyes there, it mimics the sensation of a song. Apologies if it was improper. I won't repeat it. Debo scanned the words repeatedly before easing into a chair. He grasped his pen and responded, leaving it for her discovery at dawn. It wasn't improper. Feel free to do so any time. The following day, Saad absorbed the reply, pausing in quiet reflection before tucking it neatly into her pocket. She proceeded with her duties. Yet that afternoon, she tended to the living room with extra care, scrubbing the floor to a gleaming finish. Debo observed it upon arriving home, glancing from the polished surface to the message she'd positioned near his supper. "I hope to make the vibrations purer." A near smile crossed Debo's face. He settled into dine, rereading her words, then penned a reply. "What does it resemble?" Said encountered it at first light, and, unwittingly, a smile curved her lips. That night she responded, "It's as if the world whispers to me, despite my silence." 3 months slipped by, and their exchange of notes evolved. Initial directives and domestic updates blossomed into genuine dialogue. Debo posed questions. Sade replied with candor. She observed details in the home or his habits, committing them thoughtfully to paper. On one occasion, she noted, "Sir, you haven't finished a complete meal in 3 days. You discard over half each time. Are you ill, or does the cooking disappoint?" Debo gazed at the paper, struck. None had remarked on it before. Neither his aide Bolu nor his acquaintances, just this silent presence who moved without a trace. His retort, "The meals are fine. Work has kept me occupied." Hers followed. "I'll prepare pepper soup tomorrow. My mother claimed it remedies all." Debo stowed that slip in his desk, uncharacteristically sparing it from the trash. The steaming, flawless dish awaited him the next evening. He devoured the entire serving, then stared at the vacant bowl for an extended while. His note to her: "Your mother knew best." He placed it there and retired, a gentle warmth blooming in his chest, unfamiliar in years, and one he chose not to dissect, simply allowing it to settle. Yet an event loomed that would upend the household's equilibrium. That Saturday morning, with no obligations, Debo was present sooner than Sad anticipated. He entered stealthily and caught an odd, faint hum from the rear quarters. Drawn by it, he traversed the corridor to the modest space adjacent to the wash area. The door stood ajar. He nudged it wider with caution. The sight halted him abruptly. Sad huddled on the floor, torso swaying rhythmically, palms clamped over her ears, eyes tightly clenched, lips parted in soundless strain. Tremors racked her frame, tears streaming unchecked. Debo remained rooted at the entrance, at a loss. Nothing like this had crossed his path before. He advanced with measured steps, kneeling before her without contact, simply abiding. At length, her gaze lifted. Spotting him, she inhaled sharply and recoiled against the barrier. Her notebook lay discarded nearby. With unsteady fingers, she seized it, scrawling in bold, erratic script: "I am sorry. I believed you were out. I am sorry." Debo negated it with a shake of his head, then borrowed the pen to add to the page: "You owe no apology." Debo gazed at her intently. He scribbled on the notepad, asking if she was injured. She shook her head. No. He jotted down an account of the incident. Her eyes fixed on him briefly, before dropping to the floor. With trembling fingers, she scrawled a simple response: "Just a flashback. They hit me sometimes and I can't hold them back." Debo watched her for what felt like ages. Then he added, "Want some water?" She nodded yes. Rising to his feet, he headed to the kitchen, returning moments later with a glass brimming with chilled water. He lowered himself to the floor next to her and offered it. She accepted it carefully, gripping it with both hands. The two of them remained there on the cramped room's floor in silence, sharing no words or notes, simply being present. Soft morning sunlight filtered through the narrow window overhead. Debo refrained from probing further. He lingered until the tremors in her hands finally eased. Afterward, he rose, signaled for her to take it easy, and returned to his study. Settling into his desk chair, he fixed his stare on the blank wall ahead, lost in thought for an extended period. That afternoon, he dialed Bolu and instructed him to forward the complete dossier on Sad once more. Bolu inquired, "What's the issue?" Debo replied curtly, "Nothing, just email it over." The document arrived within the hour. Debo pored over it meticulously. The non-profit group had attached a brief history. Said hadn't entered the world deaf. She'd gone silent at 9 years old. A footnote linked the deafness to a harrowing family event. Those specifics were absent. Her former boss praised her skills, noting occasional bouts of agitation that she handled independently. They emphasized it never impacted her duties. Debo shut the file. Leaning back, he reflected on her expression in that tight space, on her palms pressed to her ears, on a frightened child of 9. Come Monday, Sad arrived for her shift as normal, gliding through the home with her usual quiet grace. She skipped any reference to the prior weekend, placing his morning message on the counter like routine. It read, "Good morning, sir. Car and pap are ready on the table." Debo entered the kitchen, took a seat, and finished his meal. Then, sliding the dish away, he grabbed her pad and penned, "No need to share if you're not ready, but know this place is secure." She scanned the message, freezing in place. After a beat, she grasped the pen and replied, "Thank you, sir." He gave a nod. Their daily pattern resumed, yet an unspoken change had woven itself between them, subtle but undeniable. 3 weeks passed before Sade missed a day. Debo descended to a deserted kitchen. No meal, no slip of paper. He phoned Bolu, urging him to look into her whereabouts. Bolu reached out to the agency, who rang back within the hour. Sade was hospitalized after a beating. Debo halted mid-stride in his office. "What did you say?" Bolu restated the news. The group indicated it stemmed from family trouble. Debo directed Bolu to pinpoint the facility and text the location immediately. Bolu hesitated. "Sir, heading over yourself." Debo was already snatching his keys. The medical center lay in a bustling district. Debo drove solo, located the unit, and requested Said. A nurse guided him to a secluded cot. Sade lay propped up, her left eye puffed shut, her right arm wrapped in gauze. Alert but weary, she bolted upright at his approach, fear flashing in her eyes. He dragged a stool nearer and sat, unsure where to place his fidgeting hands. Spotting a pen on the nearby stand, he inscribed on the edge of her chart, "Who caused this?" She lingered on the query, then averted her gaze to the wall. Debo stayed put, unwavering. In the heavy quiet that followed, she extended her arm for the pen. Her single-word answer, "Brother." Debo eyed the term. He added, "Has this happened before?" She shook her head deliberately. He studied her tense silhouette, her jaw set firm. No tears fell. She resembled someone whose well had long run dry. He queried, "Where's your residence?" She responded in kind. He countered, "Not any longer." She pivoted to face him. Meeting her stare, he repeated it. "Not any longer." Those phrases held her attention for ages. A flicker crossed her features, not full ease, but a hesitant dawning, as if trust was still forming. That very afternoon, Debo set matters in motion. He summoned Bolu, tasking him with securing a private suite for Sade at a superior facility, covering all expenses. He added to retrieve her belongings from her siblings' home, enlisting 2 additional helpers. Bolu offered no pushback, simply affirming, "Yes, sir," and sprang into action. By dusk, Sade had transferred to a serene, spotless space. Fresh attire sat neatly folded by the bedside. A mobile rested on the side table, programmed with Bolu's line as the urgent contact. Debo visited later to verify. Sad sat upright, surveying the surroundings before turning to him. She inscribed, "Why go to such lengths?" He took the pen and responded, "Because it's what's right." She pondered that. Then she added, "There has to be more to it." He hesitated briefly. He scribbled, "Perhaps, but not for the reasons you're imagining. Get some rest." Then he set the pen aside and exited the room before she had a chance to reply. Saad remained in the clinic over the next 4 days. By the 5th, she was released. Bolu waited curbside in a vehicle, ready to drive her away. Not back to her rundown former area, but to a cozy, stand-alone flat in a serene neighborhood. Debo had secured the lease, covering 3 months up front. The compact kitchen was stocked with groceries. On the countertop sat a pad of paper bearing Debo's personal message in ink. It read, "Whenever you're set to return to the job, just say the word. No pressure, though. You're free to seek other opportunities if that's better for you. I'll provide a strong recommendation. Up to you." Maid absorbed the words right there in the entryway, her luggage still clutched in her grip. She went over them again. Finally, she sank onto the modest couch and let tears flow. Not out of sorrow, but from an unfamiliar emotion without a clear label. 9 days passed before she resumed her duties. She rapped on the entrance at 7 a.m., just like old times. Debo answered. His gaze lingered on her briefly. The puffiness near her eye had subsided, leaving only a subtle scar. She held herself tall, notebook at the ready. She raised it. "Good morning, sir. I'm here to start." Debo moved out of the way, allowing her entry. He headed to the kitchen, with her trailing behind. He brewed a pair of teas, sliding one toward her. She eyed it curiously, before taking a seat. They faced each other over the table, sipping in silence amid the soft dawn glow. No scribbles, no chatter. Just the quiet company of two souls, sharing the quiet hour. Debo hadn't known such ease in ages. Yet complications loomed as his mother showed up that weekend unannounced. Mama Debo was a robust, boisterous figure with piercing eyes and views on every topic. She rolled in on Sunday hauling 2 bags, announcing a full-month stay. Debo couldn't protest. After all, he was her sole child. Mama Debo strode inside, surveyed the space, and proclaimed it excessively tidy for a bachelor. "Who's behind this?" Debo credited his housekeeper. "Excellent," she replied. "Where's she at?" He explained she'd arrive come morning. "Very well," Mama Debo conceded, then set about reshuffling the entire living area. Come Monday, Sade entered to find the space utterly transformed from her last visit. She paused in the threshold, taking it all in. Mama Debo lounged on the sofa, observing her intently. She boomed a "Good morning." Sade offered no reaction, unaware of the sound. Mama Debo shot Debo a pointed glance. He hastened to clarify. "She's deaf, Ma. She can't hear a thing." Mama Debo's eyes widened. "Your housekeeper's deaf." Debo confirmed it. Mama Debo swung her attention back to Sade, who was now jotting on her pad. The message read, "Good morning, ma'am. I'm Sade. For cleaning, I'll need to reset this room, but I'll restore it exactly as you arranged once finished." Mama Debo scanned the note, then stared at Sade steadily. In a softer tone to Debo, she murmured, "She's got some nerve." Debo nearly cracked a grin. Over the following pair of days, Mama Debo kept a vigilant eye on Sade's every move. She noted her diligence, her precision. She marveled at how Sade maneuvered the home flawlessly, deaf to all sounds, avoiding collisions and overlooking no nook. That third night, Mama Debo entered Debo's office and took a seat. "Son," she began. He glanced up. "You have feelings for this young woman." Debo laid down his pen. "She's excellent at what she does." Mama Debo pressed. "That's not what I asked." Debo insisted his mother was seeing illusions. Mama Debo countered that she'd gone 61 years without delusions and wasn't about to begin. She pointed out how he orbited Sade with such caution, as if she were fragile porcelain. "Ma, why don't you retire for the night?" he suggested. Rising, she jabbed a finger his way. "You've wrecked 2 marriages by sealing your heart shut." She added, "Don't repeat that error just because she doesn't match your ideal vision." With that, she departed the room. Debo lingered there motionless long after her exit. Trouble didn't end there, though. Mama Debo kept at it. She began setting subtle snares, inviting Sade to join her afternoons and exchanging notes about family and daily life. Sade started guarded, her replies courteous and brief. But Mama Debo persisted with a kindly insistence, and Sade, starved for such kindness after so long, gradually opened up with fuller responses. Evenings brought Mama Debo's updates to Debo. That young woman endured true hardship, or she's resilient yet scarred in ways, or someone should have shielded her far sooner. Each time Debo would interject, "Ma." She raised her palm and turned to leave. One afternoon, Mama Debo posed the question straight to Sade via the notepad. She scribbled, "How did you lose your hearing?" Sade's fingers froze over the writing instrument. Gently, Mama Debo placed her palm atop Sade's. She added, "I'm not here to cause pain. I simply wish to comprehend." Sade gazed at the elderly woman's features for what felt like ages. Finally, she began to inscribe with deliberate care. At age 9, my father returned home intoxicated. Fury consumed him over some matter. He struck my mother initially, then turned on me. I tumbled and struck my head against the sharp edge of the kitchen's metal stool. I regained consciousness in the medical center, and silence had enveloped everything. That quiet has lingered ever since. Mama Debo absorbed each letter. She remained silent for an extended period. Eventually, she encircled Sade with her embrace and drew her close. Sade stayed rigid at first. It had been years since anyone had offered such comfort. Gradually, her frame relaxed. Mama Debo continued to cradle her, swaying faintly while murmuring words beyond Sade's reach. Yet the kindness permeated through. Sade sensed the reassuring strength in those aged limbs. As they separated, Sade's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Mama Debo grasped the pen once more and penned, "You're no longer isolated. Do you hear me?" Sade scanned the message. She inclined her head, though deep within. A barrier she'd maintained for 17 years began to fracture. That night, Mama Debo skipped her usual update to Debo about Sade's disclosure. Instead, she entered his office, settled into a chair, and fixed him with a steady stare. He inquired what was the matter. She offered no reply, only advising. "Treat that young woman kindly," he responded. "Mama." She clarified, "I'm not pushing for marriage, just show her decency." With that, she rose and departed. Debo lingered there. He pulled open a drawer in his desk, revealing a collection of notes, every one Sade had ever jotted to him. He hadn't even noticed he'd archived them all until now. He shut the drawer and leaned back. Deep down, he recognized he was in real peril. Yet, just as any softness threatened to deepen, the sibling materialized. Soji was his name. He arrived at Debo's entrance on a Tuesday midday. The watchman alerted Debo, reporting, "A fellow's at the gate, claims he's seeking his sibling and insists she employs here." Debo descended the stairs unhurriedly. He instructed the guard to permit entry, but remain nearby. Soji passed through the entrance. Tall and slender, his gaze burned with resentment. He approached the residence, where Debo awaited at the threshold. Soji demanded, "Where's Sade?" Debo replied evenly, "She's unavailable." Soji pressed, "That's my sister." Debo stated, "I'm aware of your identity." Soji appraised Debo briefly, then softened his approach. "All right, I only want a word with her. It was all a mix-up." Debo observed the man intently. "You hospitalized your own sister," he remarked coolly. Soji protested that it hadn't unfolded that way. Debo countered, recalling her bruised eye and wrapped limb. Soji shrugged. Situations escalate occasionally. Debo acknowledged. Indeed they can. And occasionally, individuals must answer for their actions. Soji's expression sharpened. He challenged, "Are you aware of my standing?" Debo dismissed it. "It makes no difference," he warned. "Return to this property and I'll summon authorities. Plus, I'll ensure the aid group that assigned her here learns the truth about your character." Soji glared. Then he muttered, "This isn't over." He pivoted and retreated toward the gate. The watchman trailed his departure down the avenue. Debo re-entered the home. He located Sad in the cooking area. Noting his expression, she sensed trouble and inscribed, "What's the issue?" He hesitated, then responded in writing, "Your brother showed up." Her features hardened. He continued, "He's left. I forbade his return." She fixated on the script. Soon her fingers trembled anew, not like the fear from that cramped space earlier, but fueled by rage, her chin set firmly. She jotted, "Apologies for his intrusion." "This shouldn't burden you," Debo inscribed with resolve. "It does concern me." She lifted her gaze to his. He added, "You're under my roof. That renders it my affair." She regarded him steadily. Abruptly, she dropped into a seat at the table, burying her face in her palms. Debo took the opposite chair and gave her space. When she lowered her hands, tears brimmed, yet her resolve held. She seized the pen. "He's inflicted this since my childhood. He witnessed our father and believes it's ordinary. I fled at 18, but he tracks me down repeatedly." Debo perused the lines. He replied methodically, "He won't locate you here anymore." She met his eyes. He emphasized, "I intend to stand by that." She pondered the assertion at length, then studied his visage, probing for authenticity, as if past vows had crumbled before. He maintained eye contact unflinchingly. At that point, Mama Debo entered the space, observing the pair locked in profound quietude across the table. She noted their countenances, fetched a chilled beverage from the cooler, and exited wordlessly. Debo glanced toward the vacant doorway. His eyes returned to Sad. A faint smile played on her lips. Just brief, just genuine. It marked the first occasion he'd witnessed her smiling for real. A deeper stir stirred within his chest now. He rose abruptly and announced he had tasks to attend to. He left the kitchen behind. Maid observed his departure. Her gaze dropped to the notepad. She traced the words he'd inscribed. "I mean it." She creased the sheet and slipped it into her pocket, mirroring what she'd done with the initial note. Yet Soji persisted. 2 weeks on, he reappeared, bypassing the gate entirely this time. Instead, he contacted the charity group. He claimed his sibling was being held captive by a prosperous individual and expressed concern for her well-being. The group dispatched a welfare inspector to assess Seida's situation. The inspector arrived at the residence on a Thursday morning. Debo was occupied at his job. Maid was tidying the upstairs corridor when the knock sounded. The guard permitted her entry. The inspector displayed her credentials to Maid and jotted on a pad that she was there to verify Maid's welfare and confirm her freedom to depart whenever she chose. Maid scanned the message. She regarded the inspector with composure. Seizing the pad, she replied in writing, "I chose to be here. No one's holding me. I feel no fear. My boss assisted me in securing my own flat." She added the address. She continued, "These house keys allow me early access before he arrives. Further, if my brother prompted your visit, understand he caused my hospital stay, not this man." She returned the pad. The inspector perused it. She scrutinized Sad intently, searching for any trace of anxiety. None appeared. Sade held herself poised and firm. The inspector added another note. "Are you genuinely fine?" Sade responded with a single term, the first such affirmation in ages. "Yes." The inspector departed and submitted her findings. That afternoon, the charity reached out to Debo with regrets for the intrusion, explaining it was standard protocol. Debo assured them it was fine. He inquired about formal steps regarding the brother. The inspector noted that if the sister agreed to lodge a complaint with authorities, they could investigate. Debo mentioned he'd discuss it with her. That night, seated opposite Saad, he penned deliberately, "Would you consider reporting your brother to the police?" She studied the query. Tension etched her features. She responded, "What would befall him?" Debo explained it would involve interrogation, possibly charges. He added, "The decision rests with you. I won't pressure." She pondered it extensively. After 3 days of reflection, on the 4th, she approached Debo's office and rapped on the frame. He raised his eyes. She displayed her pad. "I'm prepared." Debo shut his computer. He stood and chauffeured her to the precinct personally. He remained at her side as she documented her complete account. He observed her steady script across the paper. No tremors afflicted her this time. She detailed it all. The initial blow from her brother at age 15. The subsequent incidents, including the latest. The desk officer, upon finishing the read, met her gaze and offered a measured nod of approval. Sade, erect and resolute, returned the gesture. Debo ferried her back afterward. They lingered in the vehicle outside her building before she exited. She inscribed on the pad, "Thanks for accompanying me." He replied, "I wouldn't have allowed you to face it solo." She absorbed those lines. Then her eyes met his. With deliberation, she wrote, "Why such deep concern for me?" He confronted the inquiry. He inhaled deeply. Then forthrightly, he responded, "I'm still figuring that out myself." She absorbed it. A subtle shift crossed her expression. She stepped from the car, ere more could be added. She entered her place. Debo lingered in the stationary vehicle, a spell, before heading back. Mama Debo's stay neared its end. In her final week, she prepared vast batches of meals, portioning them into vessels. She tagged each and stowed them in the freezer. When Debo queried her actions, she explained it was to ensure her boy nourished himself post-departure, though she doubled the quantity beyond one person's needs. Debo eyed the packed freezer. He held his tongue. Her final day arrived. He transported her to the depot for the bus. At the entrance, she embraced him fiercely. She murmured into his ear, "Debo, don't play the idiot now." He murmured, "Mama." She insisted, "I'm leaving." She boarded. He remained, tracking the vehicle, until it vanished. The home seemed altered, sans her, vaster, more hushed. Sade sensed it as well. Upon arriving for duties, the space echoed with a novel emptiness. One night, she left his meal with a message. "All good? You seem to be grieving a loss." Debo perused it. Debo replied in writing, "My mother has just departed. The house always seems odd in the wake of her visits." Sade responded soon after, "I get it. I lost my mother at age 11. Once she was gone, no room ever felt quite right." He absorbed those words quietly. He remained motionless for a moment. He'd been unaware of her loss. He penned, "I'm truly sorry." Her reply came back, "No need." Her compassion shone through. Her presence had a way of softening the world's edges. Such qualities lingered in his mind. Debo lingered over her message for quite a while. He pondered how someone who'd endured such grief could still convey warmth so unflinchingly. Then the situation unraveled. Soji faced charges. Enraged, he spread rumors in their community, claiming his sister was involved intimately with her affluent boss, which explained her betrayal. The whispers proliferated. They infiltrated the charity group. They even touched Debo's professional associates. One rang him up, making light of it. Debo responded with composed firmness, warning that a repeat would end their collaboration. The caller chuckled. Debo disconnected. That very week, a gossip site published a brief piece. It avoided complete names, yet the specifics were unmistakable. It described a wealthy executive sheltering a maid with a disability and a murky past. It hinted at an improper liaison. Debo's public relations manager phoned in distress. She urged issuing a denial. He refused. She pressed that online reactions were mounting. He instructed her to allow them to accumulate. She warned of potential damage to the firm. He assured her the business was secure. She persisted. "Sir." He directed her to manage operations while he addressed personal matters. He concluded the conversation. Seated at his workstation, he considered how such coverage might wound her pride. Imagining the sting on her features, that night, he headed to her residence. He rapped on the door. She answered. Tears had evidently marked her face. Her eyes were puffy. She passed him her device. The story had reached her via a forward. He scanned it standing in the entryway, taking it all in. Then he met her gaze, noting the tension of humiliation and fury etched there. She retrieved the phone and jotted on her pad. "I'll step down. This isn't right for you. I refuse to cause trouble." He shook his head firmly. She added, "Debo, it's the proper choice." He paused. She'd never addressed him by name previously. Always, sir. Gently, he claimed the pad. He composed his thoughts deliberately. "You're no burden. You're no disgrace. You're simply an individual who's committed no fault." He continued, "Should I allow this to drive you out, I'd prove my former wife's criticisms true." She fixated on that line. He appended, "Don't quit, I ask you." She lifted her eyes to his. That plea caught her off guard. In the end, she stayed. Yet the narrative persisted, intensifying. Debo's aunt reached out. "Nephew, what's this online nonsense I'm hearing?" He dismissed it. "It's trivial," she probed. "Are you entangled with your housekeeper?" He replied respectfully. "Aunt, that's my private affair." She countered. "Folks are mocking you." He shrugged. "So be it." She reminded him. "Debo, you carry our family's legacy." He acknowledged. "I'm aware." She fretted. "This could tarnish everything." He cut it short. "Farewell, Aunt." He terminated the line. Reclining in his seat, he marveled at his own calm grip. But the turmoil was merely starting. Soji took an unforeseen step. He contacted the gossip site, supplying further information. He revealed Sade's complete identity. He highlighted her hearing impairment and the assault complaint she'd lodged against him. He portrayed himself as the wronged party. He accused her wealthy boss of manipulating and alienating her. The site followed with another exposé. This featured Sade's full name and an outdated photo Soji had provided. Debo received the alert at 6 a.m. By 7, he'd summoned his attorney. Said remained oblivious to the follow-up until she clocked in. Bolu had arrived ahead and waited in the lounge. He explained the developments via scribbled messages. She lowered herself onto the sofa gradually. She viewed the piece on Bolu's device. Her fingers stayed composed. Her expression turned impassive. Debo descended the stairs. Spotting her demeanor, he understood. He took a seat opposite. She regarded him. She inscribed a single line. "My entire existence is now fodder for public consumption." He let it settle. Then he responded in kind. "In that case, we'll supply them with a superior tale." She studied him. He elaborated. "We won't flee or conceal ourselves. You've committed no offense, nor have I." She examined his features at length. Then her gaze dropped. Finally, she inclined her head in agreement. The attorney pursued a libel suit against the site. He also secured a protection order against Soji for Sade's sake. Soji was hauled in for interrogation regarding the initial report. He attempted to discredit Sade's account as fabrication. But she possessed historical medical documents. She had precise timelines. The charity's records from her initial placement corroborated it all. Soji faced formal charges, and the proceedings inched ahead. The process dragged on, arduous and exposed to the public eye. Yet it progressed. Debo covered all the expenses, without ever disclosing the total to Sade. She never inquired about it. Instead, she showed up for her shifts faithfully, tending to the cleaning, preparing meals, and exchanging notes as always. He reciprocated in kind. Amid the chaos swirling beyond the walls, the household remained a bastion of calm. In the midst of one particularly grueling stretch, when online backlash had turned vicious and Sad had scarcely rested, Debo returned to discover her in an unusual pose once more, not swaying in the living room on this occasion, but poised on the rear veranda as dusk settled. She'd kicked off her shoes, planting her bare soles firmly against the cool tiles. Her head arched upward, eyes shut tight, face angled toward the fading sun. She held utterly motionless. The golden-orange glow bathed her features in a soothing warmth. Debo lingered at the sliding glass entrance, observing her without stirring for what felt like ages. His mind wandered to the profound quiet that enveloped her existence. He reflected on the subtle methods she'd devised to connect with the world, sensing it via her feet, the play of light, the subtle tremors through the ground. With utmost care, he eased the door aside. She remained oblivious to the sound. He approached on soft steps and positioned himself nearby. Moments later, she likely detected the shift in the breeze or his nearness, for her eyelids fluttered open and she glanced to the side. Spotting him there, she showed no startle, no scramble for her pad. She simply met his gaze. He returned it steadily. Together they lingered on the veranda, bathed in the amber twilight, exchanging no words, no scribbles, just presence. The sun dipped gradually out of sight. Once it vanished, she pivoted toward him, her eyes locking on. He held her look. From the railing, she retrieved her notepad and penned a single sentence. "I forgot to finish scrubbing the kitchen tiles." He read it and burst into genuine laughter, the sound echoing freely. She'd never witnessed that from him before. A intricate, tender expression crossed her features. Time slipped by. The court battle crawled onward. Soji exhausted every tactic. He brought on an attorney who contended that family matters had been intruded upon unlawfully. He attempted to argue the protective order went too far, but the judge rejected each argument in turn. Saad appeared in the courtroom across two separate sessions with Debo at her side. Unaware of the spoken words, she relied on his hurried summaries jotted in brief lines on the pad. She absorbed them with composure, responding in her own measured script. On that final hearing, the judge delivered a complete victory for her. Soji received a hefty penalty and a strict prohibition against reaching out. He stormed out of the room without a backward glance. Maid lingered seated as the others rose. Her hands rested in her lap, drawing her focus. Debo inscribed on the notepad, "It's finished." She scanned the words, shutting her eyes briefly. When they reopened, tears brimmed but didn't spill. She merely compressed her mouth and gave a single affirming nod. On the courthouse steps under the midday glare, she paused with Debo close by. She jotted a message and passed it over. It read, "No one's ever stood up for me like that." He took it in, studying her expression. Then he replied deliberately, "You deserved that from the start. It's not extraordinary. It's your right." She absorbed his words, then lifted her eyes to his. The sunlight blazed fiercely. Crowds streamed by on the stairs, ascending and descending. Deliberately, she added, "There's something I want to say, but it scares me." His response, "Go ahead." She stared at the page for an extended beat before writing, "Do you have feelings for me? Not as your employee, as a woman." He froze for an instant. Then, "Yes." She perused it, then reread. Her countenance grew intensely focused. "How long?" she queried next. "Longer than was appropriate," he admitted. "As your boss." She raised her gaze to meet his. He held it. The rays enveloped them both. She offered no immediate reply that day. She returned to her place, alone. Debo made his own way back. He harbored no second thoughts about his confession. That night he settled onto the veranda, pondering his failed unions. Both wives had accused him of emotional barricades. Yet with this silent woman, incapable of hearing his tone, he'd unveiled himself further than ever. The irony struck him deeply, though he made no effort to unpack it. He simply let it settle, as darkness hushed the world. The following dawn, she arrived promptly at 7 o'clock, rapping at the entrance. He let her in. She raised her pad. "Me too." He absorbed those syllables, then her direct stare. No evasion, no downward glance, just straight on. He retreated inside. She entered. He headed to the kitchen. She trailed. He brewed tea for two, sliding her cup across. They faced each other over the table, sipping in quiet. No further exchanges that morning, verbal or otherwise. Yet the shift was palpable. Even the kitchen's atmosphere felt transformed, buoyed. What followed unfolded gradually, handled with delicacy. One evening, via the notepad, Debo assured her he had no intention of hastening things. He explained that he'd hurried into things twice in the past and regretted it each time. He added that this time, he aimed to handle it right. She absorbed his words, then responded on the page. "I've never experienced anything like this before," she jotted down. "So taking it slow works perfectly for me." A faint smile tugged at his lips. Then she continued, "There's something important I need you to grasp." Next, she clarified, "My quietness is forever. Your voice will always remain a mystery to me. I'll never catch the rhythm of music as you do. And at night I won't sense if danger approaches from behind. That's the truth. It stays constant." He studied her note intently before replying with the pen. "I get it." But she pressed further. "You understand it intellectually, but does it truly sink in?" In response, he penned, "Allow me to share what I've discovered since you joined this household." He elaborated. I've realized that true clarity comes not from volume, but from genuine expression. Her gaze fixed on those lines. Her jaw tightened slightly, and she blinked repeatedly. Finally, she replied, Debo, that's the kindest message anyone's ever sent my way. He assured her. Every bit of it is sincere. Yet challenges persisted. Debo's first ex-wife, the astute Remy, caught wind of the reports about him and his housekeeper. She dialed his number. You managed to let your guard down for the help, but not for your own spouse, she remarked. Remy, he replied, surprised. Don't play coy, she shot back. I'm not here for an argument. I simply want clarity. He leaned back in his chair. To be frank, I can't pinpoint what changes everything. A pause hung between them. Then she offered, perhaps it's because she can't pick up on all the barriers you throw up to keep folks at bay. The words lingered with him. Remy ended the call. He gazed at the receiver, mulling it over for days. Soon after, Debo's corporate board summoned an urgent session. A couple of key backers voiced worries. They'd spotted the media buzz. The narrative, they argued, bred uncertainty. It didn't reflect well on a prominent executive, dating his household employee. Positioned at the table's end, Debo met their eyes steadily. With all due regard, he stated firmly, my private affairs bear no impact on our operations. He highlighted that profits had soared to their highest in 4 years. Should any stakeholder wish to withdraw over his personal choices, he proposed they offer shares at current rates, and he'd acquire them personally. Silence stretched out. No one budged. Excellent, Debo concluded, snapping his binder shut before exiting. Bolu lingered just beyond the meeting room. Glancing at Debo's expression, he inquired, how'd it turn out? Just fine, Debo answered. Any departures? Bolu probed. None, came the reply. That's positive, Bolu noted. Then deferentially, Sir, that move in there wasn't the shrewdest for business. Debo eyed him squarely. Bolu held the gaze, then grinned. Though it was absolutely correct. Back to your duties, Bolu, Debo instructed. Bolu complied. As summer arrived, the legal matter with Soji wrapped up completely. The gossip site retracted both pieces following the libel suit. Said's name faded from the headlines. Life grew calmer. A fresh sense of coziness enveloped the home. Debo and Said spent extended twilight hours on the veranda. He'd describe his daily happenings in writing. She'd share observations like how the mango tree in the rear yard had sprouted 3 additional limbs since her arrival, or the unnoticed fissure in the kitchen flooring's far left edge. Her attention to detail was remarkable. He'd grown more observant himself in her presence. One dusk, her words halted him mid-thought. Can the body hold on to memories that the mind wants to erase? She inquired in script. Explain, he wrote back. She elaborated. After stretches of calm, anxiety creeps in, as if I'm bracing for collapse. The stillness feels deceptive. He pondered briefly, then responded. I relate to that deeply. Further, I've spent my life anticipating disaster. Yet it hasn't struck, she countered. Not this time, he affirmed. Not this time, she echoed. Their eyes met over the veranda's surface amid the tranquil dusk. Unexpectedly, an odd event unfolded for both. One morning, Sade stirred in her flat to a peculiar feeling. A distant hum, akin to a note echoing through barriers. She bolted upright in bed, frozen. The hum persisted, subtle, like an insect trapped in a jar. She cupped her ear. It endured. Rising, she paced the space. It trailed her, puzzled, She messaged Bolu on her device. "I'm picking up a sound. Could that happen?" His reply came swiftly. "Describe it." "A persistent ring," she specified. "See a specialist immediately," he urged. "Now?" she asked. "Without delay," he confirmed. The physician spent 2 hours assessing her, conducting exams and summoning an associate for additional checks. Saad remained composed in the exam seat, hands clasped as they proceeded. In conclusion, the doctor inscribed his findings deliberately on a pad. The physician jotted down, "A slight improvement in nerve function has appeared in your right ear. It's minimal for now, possibly not lasting, yet it's a change that wasn't present earlier." He added, "Hearing impairment from trauma can sometimes recover gradually, particularly if ongoing stress decreases." He noted, "We'll keep tracking your progress." He cautioned, "Stay optimistic without over-expecting, but don't dismiss this development." Said lingered in the vehicle, parked near the medical center, unmoving for quite a while. She skipped her shift that afternoon, arranging the absence via Bolu. Later that night, Debo arrived at her place in person. He rapped on the entrance. When she answered, she passed him the detailed message from the doctor that she'd requested. He scanned it carefully. Various emotions flickered across his features simultaneously. Raising his gaze to meet hers, he noticed her intently studying his expression. He picked up her pad and scribbled, "What are your thoughts on this?" Her response, "Frightened." He pressed, "Frightened. Explain." She replied, "I've existed in quiet for 17 years. My entire existence revolves around that reality. Imagine if hearing returns and upends it all." He queried, "Would that necessarily be negative?" She admitted, "I'm uncertain." He assured her, "I'll support you regardless." She stared at those words. Correcting himself, he wrote, "Saad, I'll stand by you no matter what." Lifting her eyes to his, she brimmed with emotion. He settled into the seat near her threshold. She perched on the low riser just higher. They remained positioned that way as darkness enveloped the surroundings. Follow-up sessions persisted. She returned bi-weekly. With each visit, the readings showed incremental gains. What started as buzzing evolved into a soft murmur, then a subtle pitch. The specialist called it remarkable. Over his 3 decades of practice, he'd never encountered such a progression. He explained that her system was mending what had seemed irreversible. Lowered tension probably played a key role, he added, along with the natural effects of aging. They planned to observe further. Said attended every session equipped with her notebook and composed grip. She posed precise inquiries. She grasped the explanations fully. Afterward, she'd retreat home and document the details in a compact diary she'd begun. One night, Debo inquired about the contents of her booklet. She offered it to him. Flipping it open, the initial record dated back to when she'd lodged the complaint against Soji with authorities. There, she described her steady hand during the process, an unexpected steadiness that caught her off guard. The next page covered the evening on the veranda as the sunset faded. She recounted her surprise at his approach to join her, and her restrained urge to study his illuminated features. Debo absorbed those lines deliberately. As he progressed through the pages, the tone grew more affectionate with time. The most recent, just 2 days prior, read, "This morning, I sensed tremors and understood they stemmed from his words vibrating up through the kitchen tiles. His voice was unfamiliar to me until now, like distant rumbling thunder." Debo clutched the diary silently for an extended period. Meeting her gaze, He saw her serene, unwavering stare fixed on him. He shut the cover and returned it. Then, grabbing the notepad, he inscribed a single phrase. "Said, there's something I'd like to request," she urged. "Proceed." With deliberate strokes, he penned, "May I love you fully, not in the role of employer to employee, nor merely as a guardian to a peer, but as the vital presence that makes this home feel complete." She absorbed the message, rereading it. Her eyes met his. Deliberately, she responded, "Debo, I'm a hearing-impaired woman from a fractured background, marked by a violent sibling and a suppressed legal record. Are you certain?" Without hesitation, he replied. He affirmed, "I've never felt more certain about anything." She pondered that deeply. Finally, she wrote, "In that case, yes." He let out a long breath. Observing the rise and fall, she noted, "Were you holding your breath?" He confessed, "Evidently so." They proceeded with patience, navigating as their experiences had taught them. He escorted her to a serene eatery, positioning himself opposite so he could continue their exchange on the linen covering, when pages grew scarce. During the meal, she let out her first audible chuckle in his company as the server revisited a third time, discovering their script sprawling across the fabric. Strolling by the harbor in the balmy dusk that followed, she couldn't perceive the sea's murmur, but she paused, pressing her bare soul to the dock's brink to sense the rhythmic pulses of the tide against the planks. He observed her expression closely. Turning to him, she tapped into her device. "It feels lively." Gazing at the waves, he responded via text, "They're whispering about you." Curious, she asked what. He teased, "I'm keeping the translation secret. It's confidential." Her laughter burst forth genuinely then. He caught the rich, unfiltered timbre. She halted abruptly, eyeing him in surprise. He returned the look. In that moment, they both recognized the shift. Though she remained unaware of her own sound, he had registered it clearly. On the screen, he typed his final thought. Debo typed. That laugh was out loud for everyone to hear. Said stared at the screen, her fingers brushing her neck lightly. She responded on the device. Her message read, "Did it carry far?" He replied quickly. It was flawless. Half a year on, medical tests verified a partial recovery of hearing in each ear. The right side improved more than the left. This allowed her to pick up strong noises distinctly and catch conversations in hushed spaces. It wasn't complete or ideal, yet it felt genuine. The physician described it as among the most extraordinary recoveries in his records. Saad remained motionless in the exam room as he explained. She requested he jot down the details for her to study and accept as true. He did so. She clutched the sheet tightly. For the first time in ages, her fingers trembled, not out of dread. Debo waited outside in the lobby. Said emerged, paper in hand, and passed it to him. He scanned the contents. Then he raised his gaze to meet hers. She watched his lips shape syllables. She strained to listen. She poured all her focus into it. 17 years had passed since she'd last caught a sound. This one was muffled, not crisp, but tangible, soft and comforting. Debo was uttering her name. Her palm flew to her lips. Tears brimmed in her eyes. He rose from his seat. Gently, he lowered her hand. He repeated her name. Again she perceived it, fractured and remote, as if echoing from beneath layers of ocean. Indeed, it existed. From her purse, she snatched the notebook and scribbled with unsteady fingers. "I heard you," she noted. He glanced at it, skipping over the faint melody in the air. His eyes met her expression. He took in her tear-streaked face. With his own quivering grip, he scribbled a reply. "Speak to me now." She examined the note. Then her lips parted. Her tone was gravelly, unused for nearly 2 decades. Still, she uttered a single term. His name. Debo. The resonance of it reached her ears for the first time. After 17 years muted, the jolt made her inhale sharply. Right there in the clinic hallway, he drew her close in an embrace. She clung tightly. Bystanders passed without a word. She gripped him and sensed his pulse thudding against her. She detected it, subtle, removed, but present. It vibrated through her entirely. 8 months afterward, they wed. The event was intimate. Mama Debo occupied the first row, weeping as soon as Sade appeared. Bolu served as groomsman, battling tears and losing the fight utterly. Sade donned a simple white gown of her own selection. She proceeded down the aisle at a measured pace. Her devices were compact and subtle. Imperfect as they were, they sufficed. They enabled her to follow the vows. They let her grasp Debo's "I do." His words rang true and distinct when he voiced them. She echoed them back, her tone steady in her ears during the serene, pivotal instant of her existence. Once the rites concluded, Debo bent near and murmured into her ear. She caught every bit. Her lids fluttered shut briefly. She lifted them and met his stare. "I got that," she told him. "Perfect," he answered. "Repeat it," she urged. He obliged. A grin lit her features. His whisper had been, "You're no longer by yourself." She'd encountered those very words earlier, inscribed by a kind elderly lady on a sofa in a spacious home. Now they arrived from him, audible and direct in her perception. For an instant, she rested her brow on his shoulder. Then she straightened up. She held her posture as ever, like someone who'd weathered all tempests and remained upright, like a soul who'd endured every gale and still stood firm. Such is the tale of Debo and Sade, a tycoon unable to sustain a union, a hearing-impaired woman powerless to shield herself from a sibling's harm, a vast hollow residence, a writing pad. 100 tiny notes that transformed 2 destinies. Not swiftly, not without effort, but authentically. The sort of authenticity that demands patience to construct and withstands the gales without collapsing.